Okay, welcome to another video. So you might remember a few weeks ago we checked out an Arch-based distribution called POS or POS, and at the time we checked out their flagship desktop environment, which was XFCE. If you haven't seen that video, I'll chuck a link up there so you can watch that one too. But today we're going to be focusing on another one of their desktop environments. They have three on offer, which are XFCE, LXQT and GNOME, and the version we're going to be taking a look at today is their GNOME version. Before we jump straight into the live environment, BTRFS is your default file system, and it comes with sandboxing applications as well as helping you do anonymous surfing, and Fish is your default shell. It comes with a PAMAC GUI manager with flatpak and AUR support. Now, before we jump straight into it, I'd also just like to say thanks for the little shout out on your Pantheon page there. I definitely appreciate it. What we're going to do now is jump into the live environment, set it up natively onto the main desktop, and then take a look around. And here we are in the live environment, so it will of course be using the same installer that it does on the XFCE version, which is of course Calamares. So welcome to Calamares installer for POS OS Flipper GNOME. So first things first, we need to change our language from American English to British English. Next. I forgot about this actually, so you can choose your Office application from within the installer to be included on your desktop. We're going to do the same as last time and go for the fresh package of LibreOffice. Next. Europe London is about right. So we've got English UK by default, and let's just test our keyboard layout to make sure it's all working as it should, and then go to the next step. Right, so what we're going to do is not use the Subrent NVMe. All Subrents are pretty much retired now on my computers, and we're going to be using the Drevo X1 SSD. So we are going to be doing the erase disk and letting the installer create the partitions for us, and if I remember, it does give us the option to create a swap with Hibernate, which we will do. As it worked on XFCE, I see no reason why it won't work flawlessly on their GNOME version. So we're going to go for erase disk, and we're going to go to swap with Hibernate, but you could of course also do a swap to file. That's going to give us three partitions, one for our EFI or one for our root partition, which we know is BTRFS, and we can do some nice system snapshots, and the rest is assigned to our swap partition of 34.5 GB, which is large enough to suspend to disk with full hibernation. Next. Okay, user account time. So we're just going to call this one GNOME Boy. Password. And as per usual, we're going to log in automatically and use the same password for the administrator account. Now, if I remember correctly, it didn't properly set the auto login in Calamares on the XFCE version, so we'll see how we go with this newer GNOME version. So we're going to go next, make sure we've made no mistakes in the summary, and now we're going to commit to an install. So I'm going to pause the video here and come back once this has finished. Okay, so the installation has complete, and that was done in no time at all. So what we're going to do now is restart and check out our freshly installed POS distribution with the GNOME desktop. Right, so here we are, fully installed on POS OS using the GNOME desktop environment, and just straight off the bat, the out of the box look and feel is beautiful. They really do know how to design a nice looking desktop environment, and I'm not really even much of a GNOME guy these days. Now, before we start taking a look around the desktop, we do have some updates to go ahead and grab, and it might take a little bit of a while because it's 1 GB in total. So I'm going to pause the video here, apply this update, and then come back once it's finished. Okay, so we're all up to date and should be good to go. Now, there was one issue on the update. It got stuck on KeyWeb and failed to update that. So I've just held that package back for now while we take a look at everything else. So it is telling me a restart is required for the changes to take effect. So I'm going to reboot now, and then we'll carry on taking a look at this desktop. Right, so we are back, and we've quickly run htop in the terminal just so we can see how much RAM we're using on a fresh boot before we go and make any changes to our system. Now, as you can see, it's not the lightest ever, around about 850 MB, but for a fully fledged GNOME desktop distribution, you wouldn't really expect it to be too much lower than that anyway. And just beneath it, you can see our nice big swap partition that will enable us to suspend to disk with full hibernation. Now, before we start taking a look around, we will of course have a nice new kernel or version 5.11.2. Right, so we're going to start with just a general overview and setup of the way the desktop has been laid out for us. It's quite nice looking, I must admit, and I'm really not a GNOME guy these days. So I can see quite a lot of different extensions going on, and I do believe we have a dash to dock at the bottom with our panel at the top. But what we're going to do to go through these first of all is open up GNOME Tweaks, which I do believe is installed out of the box. Okay, so we're going to start in Appearance. So the application's theme is Kimmy, which, if I'm correct, is the same theme they was using on the XFCE version, and it's actually quite a nice theme. So let's see what it looks like with our Nautilus Files Manager. And as you can see, we've also got a bit of a wobbly window action going on there, like Compiz, and that will be an extension that we'll check out in just a moment as well. So we do have a few other themes. We have Adwater, light and dark. We have Faded Originals, GTK Black Light. This isn't a theme I've ever used before. Let's open up our files and see what that looks like. So not too dissimilar, just black and white as opposed to the sort of purpley colours that we saw beforehand from Kimi. We then have High Contrast, Juno Plain Light, Orchis. I don't mind the Orchis themes either. Let's have a look at the Orchis Dark Compact. And there we go. So if we open up the files now, we'll have a nice dark theme with sort of like a coloured side panel on our Nautilus Files Manager. Now we have one more, which is Quagor, which I don't remember being a huge fan of, but let's just have a quick look at that as well, our Files Manager. Actually, I don't remember it being... That's nicer than what I remember it being, to be fair, but I am going to stick with the default of Kimi because I do really like it. Despite not really liking light themes, I just think it's a very nice looking theme. I'd like to see a dark Kimi theme. I don't know if one exists, but it would be nice to sort of switch to a darker shade of this same theme. Cursor wise, we're using Adwater, and the icons are Teller Circle Purple, and it's got a few others. So of course we have the default Adwater High Color, High Contrast, and then Teller Circle Blue, and then Volantis Cursors. Kind of looks like default Adwater sort of stylings there. Let's leave it on the Teller Circle Purple. So shell is of course Orchis Compact. Interesting, so that's what's giving us this sort of compact bar there at the top. Now if we jump down into the extensions, there's going to be quite a lot going on here, I can already tell. So we have an applications menu, which is this menu at the top left here. So a nice simple drop down menu with a categories to the left and then all of the applications to the right. Auto move windows, Compiz alike Windows effect, so wobbly Windows effects inspired by the Compiz one, which is that effect on your window when you move it around right there. We then have the cover flow alt tab, so that's like a full screen alt tab switcher. Do you remember like cover art on old music players when it would sort of go past the sort of album art? So it's going to look a bit like that. Just open up a few applications and now go for alt tabbing. And as you can see, you've got the full screen. You can very easily see what's going on. Nice and smooth animations, and you can jump straight back into it where you left off. We then have floating dock, a custom dash to dock fork. Interesting. So I thought this was just dash to dock, but I thought it looked a little bit different. So this is sort of floating, so you can kind of change the margins and border radiuses of the dock. It gives me like Mac OS Big Sur dock vibes, the way it's sort of not quite down at the bottom of the screen. But I actually think it looks quite nice and does very well suit the sort of overall theming with the Orchis theme on the shell as well. So I like that. No, let's keep going. We then have Frippery Move Clock, which is a personal favourite of mine. Something very simple. I don't like clocks being central in the panel. And what that will do is just move it all the way to the right of your panel next to your clock and all of that good stuff. Next to your system tray and all of that good stuff. We then have Horizontal Workspace, Launch New Instant. Native window placement, so arrange windows in overview in a more compact way. Let's have a look. Okay, that does look fairly decent. And then we have no activities button. So of course, instead of having the activities button, because we've got the application sort of drop down application launcher there, they've decided to remove the application activities overview button. But of course, pressing your left super will always take you to your activities overview. What else have we got? So we do have the PAMAC update indicator, but it's not enabled, but it would usually live up there somewhere and then let you know when you've got some updates to come in. But we have been getting notified of updates anyway. We have panel OSD, so configuring where on the main screen notifications will appear instead of just above the message tray. What else have we got? So we've got user themes, of course, weather in the clock, so your clock will be right up there. What else have we got? Workspace indicator, which is this little drop down indicator here as well. So of course, as well as being able to go to your workspaces via here or using the sort of shortcut keys, you can just drop that down and then select whatever workspace you want. It'll play the animation and then take you to that workspace. And then we have Windows Navigator, so allow keyboard selection of windows and workspaces in overlay mode. Control and number selects a workspace, Alt and number selects a window. Interesting. So we're in our overview. Let's try Control and 2. There we go. And 3. It's not going back to 1. Okay. And now we can try it with the actual window numbering. So if we press Alt and then hold it, you'll notice that each window now has a little number next to it. So for example, if we wanted to jump back into our terminal, we just press 3 and then it will exit overview and then go straight into that window application. Very handy. Okay, usually I don't like loads and loads of extensions, but I think they've done a decent job there in choosing ones that do work quite well with each other. Now font wise, I don't know what font this is. So interface font is free mono bold, document text is free mono regular, monospace is monospace regular, and then legacy window titles is free mono bold. I don't know if I like the font on the particular GNOME desktop. I don't know if I'd change it or not if I was to use it anymore. Anyway, so of course in the Windows title bars we also have the maximize and minimize buttons enabled out of the box. Now before we start having a look at the applications and installing a few more things, let's just quickly see how much we do have installed out of the box here. So as you can see, package wise we are using 1284 native packages from Pacman. Right, so now what we're going to do then is go through all of the applications and see what we do have installed out of the box. I am probably going to install Steam myself. I don't know if Steam is included, and last time we had some issues with flatpak and things like that, so we'll test that out as well, because when we was on the XFCE version we could install them, but they weren't appearing in our application launchers and we had to launch them via the terminal. So what we're going to do is go straight into the activities overview, or we could do it this way, but I think it's easier to see on video playback if we do it straight like that. So we have Exerciser, Add or Remove, which of course is going to be the PAMAC GUI, and if we go into the preferences here, I do believe it has flatpak support enabled in here. Let's have a look. There you go. So we have all three. So we have AUR, Snap and flatpak support all from within the PAMAC manager there. Very nice. So we have the SSH, ZeroConf and server browser stuff. So we have Blue Mail, which is only an email client I've only very loosely used on a desktop, so I've used it quite a lot on an Android phone. I find it's a pretty decent email client on a phone, however I'm not too sure how amazing it is on a desktop, but that's where I know Blue Mail from, is from when I've used it on my phone. The interface looks pretty much exactly the same as what I remember it on Android. Let's keep moving. So we have Bluetooth Manager, we have Books, we have GNOME boxes out of the box. That's pretty handy if you want to use that to run any virtual machines. We then have Builder and Button Manager, which is for managing snapshots for your BTRFS file system. Calendar, Cheese for your webcam. GNOME Chess, ClamTK, which is a little virus scanner program. Clocks, CMake, Conky for your widgets. And I must say I do really like the default widget in the middle there that just is a nice little shadow there and just shows you the date and time very simply. Let's keep moving. So we have Dconf Editor, DevHelp, Discord out of the box. If you'd like to join the Tylus Tech Discord server, there'll be a link in the description below. Documents, Electron, Elisa. So Elisa is a music program I use quite a lot, and you find it quite often on KDE distributions. It's quite weird to see it out in the wild on the GNOME desktop environment, but there we go. Let's keep moving. So that was Elisa. We then have extensions. Files is of course Nautilus. Your default web browser is going to be Firefox. We then have FireJail. So these Fire tools are pretty cool. I remember it from the XFCE version. What Fire does, it will allow you to run applications in kind of like a sandboxed, jailed kind of environment. So as you can see there, I'll open it up right about there. Let's just minimize this for the moment. Can we? Is that floating? It is indeed. So any of these will be running in like a sandbox jailed kind of environment. So for example, if we wanted to open up Firefox, we just double click that, and now that's running in its own little jail sort of stuff there. Very handy. And of course you have a few more there, and you can edit that and customize it to your heart's content. So by default we have things like Totem, which is the default video player for GNOME, GIMP, LibreOffice, VLC and a few others, and just right clicking and quitting that will then exit Fire, and then you can keep on going. So that was your FireJail conf and tools. We then have the firewall configuration, ghex glade, and we have GIMP installed out of the box, which is very nice to see. It will make me doing a thumbnail a lot easier. We then have gparted, which is what you're going to use to create partitions and all of that good stuff. We then have hardware locality, htop is installed out of the box. IPython, keyweb, which is that package that failed to update when we've done the system upgrade. And then because we chose the full LibreOffice fresh package, we now have the whole of the LibreOffice on our desktop. Now unfortunately, if I remember from the XFCE version, it didn't have the English dictionary enabled out of the box, so that means auto spell checking doesn't work. So as you can see there, it is enabled, but it just means we need to add a dictionary, and I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and do that now. So we're just going to type in LibreOffice English dictionary, And now we're just going to download the extension and install it, and then we'll be able to actually have automatic spell checking working as intended. So we're just going to grab the top one right about there, and we're just going to save that. Okay. It's only a small file, it shouldn't take no time at all. Downloading quite slow though. There we go. So we're just going to go into that downloads folder, double click that. Okay, and it's going to ask you to restart it. And then we're going to restart it now, and if all's gone to plan, we'll now have spell checking working as you would expect it using the English dictionary. And there you go, as you can see we've got the nice little squiggle letting us know that spell checking is working perfectly. Okay, so that's a LibreOffice. What else have we got? And of course you could have changed your Office suite of applications in the installation process. So we as well have managed printers and GNOME mines. We then have USB multi-writer, music, network tools, nibbles, onion share, photos, Polari, print settings, pulse audio volume control. We then have Qt assist designer, linguist, and QDBoss viewer. And then we have the V4L2 test and capture utilities. So we have Qt5 settings, normal GNOME settings, and then shortwave, which I'm just going to imagine is a radio player of some sort. I've never actually used it. And then we have software. So as well as having the PAMAC GUI, we have GNOME software installed out of the box. Now we know that we do have Snap and Flatpak support. I wonder if we've got any of the plugins for Snap and Flatpak enabled in the actual GNOME software. So what we're going to do is search for Kdenlive. So we've got a result. Let's have a quick look and scroll down to the source, and that is going to be installing it from FlatHub. So what I'm going to do is install that and make sure it does work and it is launching for our application launcher, and then we'll carry on. So I'm going to pause the video here while this installs and be back in just a moment. Okay, so the Flatpak installation for Kdenlive has complete from the FlatHub repository. Now hopefully it will be in our application launchers. So we're going to go straight into our activities overview, type in Kdenlive, and there we go. So we have the nice up-to-date version of Kdenlive installed from the FlatHub repository, and it's installing and it's appearing in all of our application launchers as you would expect it to. Perfect. So let's close that for now. I'll come back to that when I edit this video later on. Perfect. So that was GNOME software. What else do we have? Software token, sound recorder, GNOME Sudoku, sysprof, termite is our terminal. Our text editor is Gedit, and then we have Timeshift, which is another way to manage BTRFS snapshots. And if I remember correctly, it will have already created a few snapshots when we've done our system upgrade. So every time you do an upgrade, it will automatically create a snapshot. And if there's any issues with the sort of new snapshot that you're on, you can roll back to a previous one and make any changes you might need. So let's just quickly run through the wizard. Yep. Daily is just fine, and finish. And there you go. So as you can see, we've got a couple of automatic snapshots there, and if we just full screen that, you can see in the comments it says Timeshift auto snap before upgrade. So it gives you a bit of extra peace of mind there. I do very much like it when distributions that default of BTRFS set it up with automatic snapshots like so. So that was Timeshift. And then we have GNOME to do Tor browser, which is of course the Tor web browser to allow you to connect to the Tor network. We then have Variety, and this is what's going to be managing the sort of all of the wallpapers. So if you've noticed, it's been changing the wallpapers on a set interval. You can change that to a different time or the folder where it gets the photos from if you like. We then have GNOME Videos, which is probably Totem or GNOME Videos. We then have Vim, VLC Media Player and Weather, and of course we have Kdenlive that we installed via Flatpak. Brilliant. So what we're going to do now then is do a quick media test to make sure it's all working as it should. I don't see why we'd have any issues there. So I do have an SSD that is formatted in exFAT, so we're going to go and grab that and make sure it mounts out absolutely fine, and then we'll keep going. Okay, so it's found the SSD and it's mounted it absolutely fine without no problems at all. So I've got a little folder here for media test where I've got a few video files, and we're just going to test that out now to make sure that's working with the default media player of Totem. And there we go, everything is working absolutely perfectly. What I want to do is go ahead and install Steam and play a little round of CSGO to make sure the frame rates are looking good and that gaming is set up to work as you would expect once Steam is fully installed. Now to do that, we will need to edit our pacman.conf and remove multilib and then install Steam. So we're going to go and do that now and be back in just a moment. Okay, so we've just edited our pacman.conf, and all we wanted to do was uncomment these two lines here underneath the testing, and now we should be all good to go ahead and install Steam. So what we're going to do is close that. I've already synchronized the databases, so we should just very simply be able to go sudo pacman s steam. And there we go. So I'm going to let that install Steam and be back once it's finished. Okay, so we've just started a random casual game on Counter-Strike Go on DDoS 2, and we're just going to run around for a few seconds, keeping an eye on the frame rate and making sure everything is nice and smooth. And gameplay is nice and smooth, and we're getting anywhere from sort of nearly 300 FPS there, all the way down to about 160 here and there when it dips. But yeah, it's working absolutely fine, and what I would expect from this kind of hardware in this computer. And what we're going to do, did we get his head? We did indeed. So I'm going to quit the game there, and then we're going to finish up with a few more things and then wrap up with some final thoughts. Right, so before we test out hibernation to make sure that's all working as it should, for those of you wondering how the wallpaper switching works, is with this little program here called Variety. So as you can see in the general, it's set to start every time the computer boots up, and by default it will change your wallpaper every 5 minutes. Now that's a little bit too quick for me, so I would go into the different intervals here where you can do seconds, minutes, hours or days, and I would set it to like every 4 hours or something similar to that. And you can also do it so it changes your wallpaper every time you start up, so every time you load up your computer you've got something fresh to look at. Now in the images there's quite a few things you can do here, so of course you can just do it to a folder with the location by default is user shared backgrounds, and you can even grab high resolution photos from Unsplash. Very nice. So what we're going to do now is open a few applications and test out hibernation, and of course for it to have worked all of the programs that we open now need to be still in their same position exactly where we left them when we resume from hibernation. So we'll leave Variety open, we'll also open up Nautilus, and we'll open up Elisa. Now to save time I'm just going to summon up the hibernate via the terminal, and then we'll see how we go. So system ctl hibernate. Okay, so we're just starting back up, and of course if we're landed straight at the lock screen it means hibernation has more than likely worked, and all of the applications will be there once we log back in. So let's press enter, type in our password, and all of those programs are right there exactly where we left them, which means hibernation has worked absolutely perfectly. I'm going to wrap it up there, but all in all I'm really quite happy with the way these looks at these distributions have gone so far. Their XFCE one was brilliant, and their GNOME one is also very nice. I like the way it looks and it's set up out of the box, and I also like the way they've defaulted to BTRFS as the file system with the automatic snapshots every time you do a system upgrade for that bit of added peace of mind. All I want to do now is check out the LXQT version, and maybe they can get the hat trick of 3 nice desktop distributions. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and join the Discord. There's a link in the description. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.